everybody. Welcome back to Shakespeare Made Clear. I just love that. I'm Dame Sarah Spring. I am a New York-based actor and Shakespeare coach. And today we're going to dig into Paulina's monologue from Act 3, Scene 2 of The Winter's Tale. Now, first off, if you are choosing to work on this piece, well done. It is such a gorgeous piece. I love it so much. We're going to get into that, but first a little bit of context, and then we'll go line by line, make sure we understand everything that she's saying in the speech, and then we'll go over some, possible acting choices you might want to make or opportunities that there are to explore with this monologue. So let's go ahead and dive in. Woo woo. Leontes is the king of Sicilia. He and his very pregnant wife Hermione have been hosting his childhood best friend Polixenes, who is the king of the neighboring kingdom of Bohemia. And they've been having a great time until one night, for absolutely no reason at all, Leontes becomes convinced that Hermione and Polixenes are having an affair. Now, it's very important to understand there is absolutely no reason for him to think this. No one else in the play believes that this is true, but he just becomes fixated on this idea. Like, I'm not a psychiatrist, and obviously this isn't a real person, it's a fictional character. But if I were to diagnose him, I'd say he's probably bipolar. Like, he just is having a manic episode, and he becomes absolutely fixated on this idea that his wife is cheating on him. And no matter what anyone says to him, he can't be convinced otherwise. So he goes to his aide, Camillo, and he orders him to poison Polixenes. And Camillo's like, hey, sir, you're cray-cray. I mean, not in those words. But he's like, hey, this is absolutely insane. But he's ordered by the king to do this. And so instead of murdering Polixenes, he goes to Polixenes and he warns him of the plot. And together, the two of them flee to Bohemia. Leontes, of course, takes this departure of Polixenes and Camillo to be an admission of guilt. So then he imprisons his wife Hermione, who, remember, is very pregnant. So she ends up giving birth while in prison under just horrible conditions. And her noblewoman, best friend, companion, Paulina, comes to the prison and takes the baby and brings it to the king in hopes that she'll be able to soften his heart, make him realize, like, hey, this really is your kid, and realize the error of his ways. But it doesn't work. He becomes even more convinced that this child is a bastard, and he orders that the baby be taken out to the wilderness and abandoned to be eaten by crows, left for dead. So then he takes Hermione to court. He puts her on trial, and, trial, it's kind of a monkey court. He already knows that he's going to convict her. But he makes her get up in front of the court and defend herself. And even though she's incredibly weak from having just given birth, she stands trial and defends herself and carries herself with dignity and grace. After she gives her speech, a messenger comes from the oracle, which is basically like a deus ex machina. He comes with proof that Hermione is innocent, that all of this was in Leontes' head. But even with that proof, Leontes refuses to believe it. And so as he's about to convict his wife, a servant comes in with horrible, horrible news. Their young son, Mamilius, who is maybe 7, 8, 9, has just died of a broken heart because he's so worried about what's happening to his mother. And upon hearing the news that their child has died, Hermione faints, and Paulina and some other gentlewomen carry her out of the courtroom. And Paulina re-enters, and she gives this speech. Right off the bat, Paulina says, "What studied torments, tyrant, hast for me?" Now, first off, she just called the king a tyrant. She could be killed for saying that. In the previous scene, she said, "I'll not call you tyrant, but the way you're behaving is like a tyrant." Here, she's flat out saying it. She knows that she's risking her life saying that, but it's the truth, and she doesn't care. She has nothing left to lose. What studied torments? Studied means well thought out, premeditated. So she's basically saying, what torture do you have planned for me? You've tortured everyone else in Sicilia. Then she starts listing forms of torture. She says, what wheels, racks, fires, what flaying, boiling in leads or oils. Now, these are some very specific types of torture, and because we're actors and we want to understand what we're saying, let's look up exactly what these are. So I have a note for wheel. It says, the wheel was a torture and execution device. After the victim's body was repeatedly smashed so that all the limbs were broken, he or she was laid out on the wheel with the limbs braided through the spokes. The wheel was then hoisted up on a pole, and the victim died a long, slow death while being picked at by crows and leered at by crowds. Not fun. The rack was a torture device that victims were tied to and stretched out until their limbs were dislocated. What fires? Is she going to be burned at the stake? Flaying. Flaying is skinning someone alive. And then boiling in leads or oils. Like, they would actually boil people alive in big pots of lead or oil. And she's saying, what do you have planned for me? One of these tortures? One of these old tortures? Or do you have a newer torture devised for me that no one's ever even heard of before? What old or newer torture must I receive, whose every word deserves to taste of thy most worst? Now, she doesn't even say worst. She says most worst. And I think that's so interesting. Like, the word worst wasn't enough. It's the most worst. She's saying, of everybody here, I deserve to be tortured the most. Give me your worst, because what I am going to say is going to piss you off, but it's the truth. Thy tyranny, together working with thy jealousies, fancies too weak for boys, too green and idle for girls of 9. Basically, these idiotic notions that you've had in your head that your wife has been cheating on you, they're so ridiculous that even a little boy knows that that's absurd. Even a 9-year-old girl wouldn't believe that. And I think it's really interesting that he specifically says the word 9. And I wonder if maybe that's the exact age that their son Mamilius is. I don't know, just a thought. Oh, think what they have done, and then run mad indeed, stark mad, for all thy bygone fooleries were but spices of it. So think of all of the crazy things that your tyranny and your jealousy have done already, and take a deep breath, because you ain't seen nothing yet. That was just a preview of coming attractions. What is still to come is so, so much worse. That thou betrayedst Polixenes, 'twas nothing. So the fact that you betrayed your best friend, that was absolutely nothing. That did but show thee of a fool, inconstant and damnable and grateful. All that did was show that you really are an idiot. That not only that, but you're a disloyal idiot. You're an ungrateful idiot to do that to your best friend. Nor wast much that thou wouldst have poisoned good Camillo's honor to have him kill a king. Now, it's interesting that she uses the word poisoned, like basically saying to him, I know exactly what you asked Camillo to do, because he asked him to poison Polixenes, and she's using that word and spitting it right back at him. That you would poison his honor by asking him to kill a king. And it's such an understatement, too, because she's saying you wanted to have him kill a king? That was nothing. Regicide is pretty serious, but she's saying even that was nothing. Poor trespasses, more monstrous standing by. So much worse things were to come. Whereof I reckon the casting forth to crows thy baby daughter to be or none or little, though a devil would have shed water out of fire ere done't. So the next terrible thing that you did was to abandon your child, your infant child, in the wilderness to be eaten by crows. And you know what? Even that was nothing, even though, let's get into this imagery. She's saying, even though the devil himself would have cried, even with his face on fire, he would have cried before he had done something like that. Woof. Then she says, nor is directly laid to thee the death of the young prince. And just a word of advice to the actor, I would really color that word directly, because she's basically saying, okay, you're not directly responsible for the prince's death. You didn't ask somebody to murder your son, but you might as well have. of the young prince whose honorable thoughts high for one so tender, cleft the heart that could conceive a gross and foolish sire blemished his gracious dam. So again, kind of juxtaposing Leontes with his son, saying that your son was so wise beyond his years. He was so intelligent and thoughtful and kind, but those thoughts cleft his heart in two, broke his heart in two, because he was so worried about his mother and so upset seeing his father disgrace her in such a manner. This is not no laid to thy answer. Even this, the death of your son, you don't have to answer for that. But the last, O lords, when I have said, cry woe. The queen, the sweet's dearest creature's dead, and vengeance for't not dropped down yet. Whew. So this is brand new information. She has just told us, the audience and everyone on stage, that the queen has died. And she says the words the queen twice. And as the actor, you need to have a really good reason in here for why saying that once just is not enough. Think of Hermione as Princess Diana times 50. She is so beloved. Everyone in the court loves her and knows that she was innocent. And you just lost your best friend. And there's something also about saying those words out loud for the first time, that this person that you love is dead. It makes it real. It brings it into reality, just hearing those words linger in the air. So really think about that, inhabit that. And vengeance fort not dropped down yet. Karma's going to get you. It hasn't gotten you yet, but it will. And it's all monosyllables, that last line. So it's a chance to slow down and really give it a mic drop. Oof, it's such a good speech. A few things to remember. Number one, this speech builds. She could have just come out and said, hey, the queen's dead, but she doesn't. She gives this entire list of the king's crimes, from the least terrible to the most horrific, in order to prove that he is directly responsible for the queen's death. So as the actor, you need to track that build. You need to let this speech grow. Paulina is a force of nature. She is ballsier than any man in this play to speak to the king in this manner. And to me, this speech almost feels like a storm that's brewing. So let her be the storm. This speech is also littered with hard T and hard R sounds. Like, think about that first line, what studied torments, tyrant, hast for me? Or the line, the queen, the sweetest, dearest creature's dead. There's a harshness to those sounds, and they're there on purpose. If you're using them, if you're leaning into them as the actor, this piece, it almost sounds like she's spitting fire at him. Like, it's incredible. So just enjoy using those sounds, lean into them. If you rob Shakespeare of his music, you rob him of half his genius. Like, let those sounds create a storm. Also, she's using the word thou with him. Now, if you're interested in this, in going into this in depth, I have a video on you versus thou. But basically, thou is the informal form of the word you. And using it with a king is a no-no. You do not expect to speak to the king using the word thou and live to tell the tale. But she does it anyway, just like her calling him a tyrant. It's just further evidence that she doesn't care. She has nothing left to lose. And also, this is very important. Make sure you read the whole play to the end, because at the end of the play, Hermione reappears. And it's not clear whether she was actually alive the whole time and Paulina was just faking her death and hiding her away, or if the queen really did die and she is somehow magically brought to life. The Winter's Tale is sometimes classified as a problem play, and I love the problem plays because the plays themselves aren't problems, but they give you problems that you get to solve as the the actor, as the director. And so this is up to you. Is Paulina telling the truth? Has the queen really died? Or is she making it up? Is she pretending that the queen has died? That's a really important decision to make, and it's up to you. There's no right answer. All right, so that's my analysis. If you just did not get enough and you want to learn even more, you can download my Paulina Made Clear cheat sheet available in the description below. This is even more information. It's my complete notes on the piece, along with a sample scansion and complete analysis of the pentameter in this speech, along with several tips for prepping this monologue. So if you're interested in that, it's available again in the description below for $2. And girls gotta eat. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. If it was, please hit that like and subscribe button so I can keep making these videos for you. Let me know what you think of this speech in the comments below, or if you have any requests for speeches that you want to see me go into in detail, you can leave a comment for me. I will do my best to respond. And thank you so much. Good luck with this speech. Have a great day. I'll see you next time. Bye.